Well, welcome. Excited to be here. Thank you, Charles, for sharing the story. Thank you for Denise. It's so encouraging and so affirming to hear somebody who was not part of what we were doing at the very beginning say this is exactly what God was leading her to and we're preparing for. And that's just so encouraging. Charles mentioned, actually both of y'all mentioned the way God has provided by drawing us together and the diverse talents, and you named several of them, but some other examples of just God providing. This beautiful altar here, okay? Charles just happens to be a woodworker. I enjoy that too, but he made this because we needed an altar. So, Andrew made a nice little base for this cross. This cross, by the way, part of a bunch of stuff that was given to us by a Methodist pastor who collects these kind of things. I don't remember the story of this cross, but these came out of churches from the 1800s. These are old things that he gave us. Most of them look old. That looks fine. That's why it's not out yet. But anyway, just the way God has provided for us. Look around at all the equipment you see. None of this belongs to the church. For some silly reason, these people had all this equipment. By the way, you don't see the great big sound box that has all kind of equipment in it that Kerry owns, and a lot of his other equipment that's not here now. It's just God pulled people together with the resources we needed. And that indirectly kind of sets up, I guess what I wanted to share with you. My very unique testimony, as you said, not one I ever thought I would have occasion to give, and still sometimes feel odd about. This story also happens on January 17th. You mentioned that was when we had our first big gathering. That morning, give you a little context, Sarah is a high school math teacher. I work from home mostly. So our normal routine during the school year is she gets ready, she, on the way out, tells me bye, which means I get out of bed, give her a kiss, have a great day, get back in bed, and sleep for a little longer till my alarm goes off. But this particular morning, January 17th, God decided I did not need to sleep until my alarm went off. Laying in bed and started thinking about some stuff with our church, not this church obviously, but the prayer church. One of my responsibilities was the curriculum director for our Sunday school class. And I had we were approaching the Lenten season, and I had a lot of logistics I won't go into, but needed to make some key decisions on what we're going to study for Lent, when we're going to start it, who's going to teach it, various things like that. And it's my mind, and that's fairly typical of me to be thinking about those kind of things a few weeks out from Lent, if I hadn't already picked out something. So my mind's kind of racing on that, but all of a sudden a thought came to my mind. It was like hearing a voice. There was no audible voice, but in my head I heard a man's voice. It was not my voice. It was not some big James Earl Jones, Greg, this is God. Nothing like that. But I heard a voice in my head say, you don't need to worry about the Lenten series. And I thought, that's a strange thought, but I kept just kind of thinking through and trying to figure out what's the best course of action. A few minutes later, and I say that because I'm laying in bed still, okay? My mind is racing, but I may not be 100% awake, okay? But a few minutes later, as I'm still thinking through all this, I hear that voice again. Again, just in my head, but I hear that voice saying, because you won't be picking the Lenten series. And at that point, I thought it was really strange because the past 15 plus years, I was the one who chose our curriculum for the class. So where are these thoughts coming from? I'm confused. I'm beginning to think maybe this is something outside of me. So I'm praying about it a little bit, still in kind of this state of sleep and thinking and mind racing and prayer and all that kind of mixed together. And I heard that voice again saying, because when you finish your current series, will be your last Sunday at this church. At that point, I was wide awake, because that is not at all what I had intended. We're getting ready later that day for an informational meeting. So I knew at some point we were going to be leaving. In my mind, it was probably going to be after Easter. Nothing hard decision. It's just kind of sort of where my thinking was. So the idea of it was going to be 3 weeks away was jarring a little bit. About this time, my alarm goes off. Turn it off. Go downstairs, get breakfast. I got some meetings. Got to get going for Zoom meetings. So quickly get in the shower. Getting ready. And I'm going to pause on the story to tell you a little bit about something from my background. As a young teenager, I dislocated my shoulder one time, 13 or 14 years old, something like that. Of course, as a teenage boy, I'm not going to let that stop me from doing whatever I want to do. So between then and my 18th birthday, I dislocated it 17 more times, a total of 18 times, doing things that I probably shouldn't have been doing. Result of that, I've got a shoulder that is very sloppy and hurts, and every once in a while it's convenient when I'm trying to reach for something in the back seat of the car because I can kind of dislocate it and grab it and pull it back, but then it hurts after I do it. Anyway, so I'm now almost 60. So I've been living with that for about 45 years, kind of gotten used to it. It's gotten worse and causing more and more issues. So one of the things I do in the shower after I get done, don't worry, this is not TMI, is turn the water up, hot water, almost as hot as I can stand it, and just let it blast on that shoulder. It just feels good. I did that. And about a second into that, at first I thought somebody was touching it. I felt something right on top here, and I looked back. There's nobody back there. But, and I thought, what in the world was that? It was just this weird sensation. And anyway, so all this time I'm still praying about what these words are I've been told. But I started moving the shoulder around, and I noticed it felt very different. If you walk around with tennis shoes on, and one's untied and one's tied, you know how awkward that feels, and you can't wait to stop and cinch up the shoe, and how good it feels when they're both tied. It was like for 45 years, this shoulder had been untied. And suddenly I realized, moving around, it felt exactly the same as my left shoulder. That was almost 6 months ago. It still feels great. I catch myself doing things I haven't been able to do for 45 years. I'm still cautious, too. I don't think God clearly healed this shoulder. The reason I say that is because one more time, and it's the last time, I heard that voice. And that voice said, I just healed your shoulder to confirm everything I've told you. I'm getting emotional now, just like I did when that suddenly came to me. I realized I had to hurry up and get down to this meeting. So quickly dry off, get dressed, head down to the meeting. As I'm going down, I'm checking my emails, and that meeting got canceled. So cool, I've got another one right after it. I looked, and it had been canceled the night before. I just didn't realize it. Back upstairs praying. Short with that, it was clear God was telling me February 12th would be your last Sunday at the church. I didn't understand why there. In hindsight, I can see so clearly how that was part of all these different things he was working together. But this healing is so important because even with the undeniable evidence of I can sit here and do things with my shoulder and it doesn't hurt, that day, January 17th, I still had doubts about, did I really hear that or was I thinking that? But anytime I touched my shoulder, it was just to remind you, don't play around with this. Do what you're told. So, we did. And for the longest time, I thought that was for me to get my attention to it's time to leave and focus 100% on this. I have since discovered from hearing some of y'all talk that have been here from the start that while I'm the beneficiary of this, others of you have been too, because it is a confirming presence of God is in this. God is driving this. People, some of this is personality, other of it I think literally has to do with this healing, is I have not felt any regret. I have missed a few friends from the prior church, but hey, I work from home. I go to lunch with them. I still have relationships with them. Others are going through a real time of grief, and I think the reason I'm not so much is because of this tangible evidence, but I also think maybe that helps others who are going through questions to realize, I wasn't the one with the healed shoulder, but I can claim that affirmation that God is in all of this. God is providing, back to what I said originally, and this is yet another way. So I just wanted to share that testimony because it is a unique story. I never thought I would get a chance to tell, and now I don't pass up a chance to tell it.